Hey everyone, welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. Welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. My name is Gina Pike. I am so very happy that you're here today. Today we are going to be talking about a project that I started about a week ago, and I have already shared the first clue with you guys. I will link that up above to that video, put a link to that video up above if you guys are wanting to go check that out, because today we're going to be talking about clue number 2 of the Romi Hill Mystery Shawl Spring 2021 knit-along. That's a mouthful. Anyway, this is something that happens every year. I've done this for the last 5 years. I am so excited about this shawl. I showed you guys the yarns that I'm using last week. I'm using some yarn from Diana Dye in the color Angel Face Rose and Blooming Heather. This is Angel Face Rose, Blooming Heather. As you can see, I've used a lot of the Angel Face Rose in this clue number 2. I'm hoping I have enough left for the rest of the shawl. What I did last time for clue 1 is I had 2 videos released on the same day. One video was about the stitches that she had used for the shawl up to that point, just in clue 1. And then I did a video for clue 1. I think today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about clue 2, and then there are new stitches that were added to the legend for clue 2, and I'm going to put those at the end so that if you guys are not interested in watching the stitches video, you can just stop the video after I finish clue 1. But if you are interested in watching how the stitches are done, then that will be at the end, and it won't get... I am a little bit concerned. The reason why I want to do that this way is I got to thinking, if I have like 2 videos for every clue, then there's 10 videos because there's 5 clues, and then it might start getting confusing as to which stitches go with which clue. So I thought maybe I should just put them together, and I'll just put it at the end. So if you guys don't want to watch it, you can just stop the video after I finish talking about the clue. Okay? So make it a little bit easier so you guys don't have to go search for another video. All right, here we go. Let's get into clue 2. Let me say something first, too. I have encouraged a few of you guys to start knitting this pattern with me, and I know that Elise Armstrong is. I know that I think Priscilla is, and I'm trying to think of a few other people that might be knitting this. I think Shaba said that she was going to knit this. If I'm missing you, I'm sorry. My brain's not working very well today, but I am so excited that you guys are knitting this along with me. And if you guys want to share your progress pictures, email me. I'd love to pop them up in these videos as I'm talking about my clue. I think it's very fun to see other people's knitting in different types of yarn, making the same thing. It always looks just a little bit different. You know, it's the same pattern, but you know, the yarn makes a big difference. And anyway, let's get started here. And I also want to say, this shawl is a little bit harder than her other shawls usually are. There's a few tricky stitches in this shawl pattern. With clue 2, I was actually kind of surprised and taken aback. But you know, as I've said before, if there is a stitch that you're not familiar with or that is a little bit more complicated, just break it down into the pieces that it is, and usually you can work your way through it. So don't let me discourage you. I want to encourage you. I think anybody can knit this shawl. I think you just have to, if it's a little bit more advanced than I thought it would be, but everybody should be up for a challenge, and I know anybody can do this, especially if I'm doing it. Because remember, I taught myself how to knit, and I haven't been doing it all my life. I've only been doing it for a few years. So here we go. This is where we are. This is clue 2. Maybe I should turn it this way. This is how the shawl will hang. No, I can't. I want you guys to see the design. This is clue 2. We showed you clue 1, and clue 1 went up to these little designs right here. It was about right here. And then we started with clue 2. There were 2 charts for clue 2. And let me start back here and then I'll show you the details. It's already getting pretty big. It's like a 200, almost 250 stitches. And you can see that, I showed you all the cute little flower designs, like a little flower stalks. And now we're getting into a lot more complicated stitches. This was pretty complicated. We finished this out, but then we started going into these chevron designs. And there's some bobble stitches in here. There's some central decrease. That's a central decrease stitch. Here's a bobble stitch. I'm sorry, there's the bobble stitch. There's another central decrease stitch to form some of these little ornamental designs. It's very detailed. Let me show it up close, what it's looking like. Very pretty, but very detailed. And you can see these are those center decrease stitch, bobble stitch, another center decrease stitch above it. And it just goes throughout the length of the shawl. These are the repeats you do. And of course you can see I use stitch markers to mark them off. And that's really it. This is, we're still working with color 1. I think I have 38 grams left in my color 1, so I'm hoping I don't need a lot more of it. Just a little spurses here and there. So I'm hoping we pick up color 2. And I really am enjoying this shawl. Like I said, some of these stitches are getting more complicated, which I'm going to go into here in a minute. But thank you for letting me share this with you. Again, this is just clue 2 of this project, and I will be sharing clues 3, 4, and 5 every week until we're finished. After clue 5, we should finish this up. But this is what it's looking like, and it's getting to be a nice, pretty shawl. All right, let's move on into the stitches. If you're not interested in the new stitches for the shawl, well, you can go ahead and stop the video now. But there were quite a few new stitches for this shawl. There's a let me just show you this part. I'll show you. See the highlights in yellow? Those are all new stitches for this clue 2. So there's quite a few. Let's go through them. There's the decrease 5 stitch, which is kind of like you do this stitch like a centered double decrease. And basically, if we have to decrease 5 in our pattern, it says you're going to slip 3 stitches together knitwise. I was doing it the wrong way. So you want to do this knitwise. You would take these 3 stitches, slip them together knitwise, like that. Then you would do a slip knit, so that would grab stitches 4 and 5. You knit them together through the back loop, and then you're going to take these 3 stitches that you slip together knitwise and pass them over that slip knit stitch. And that is called another type of a centered decrease stitch, because it's not leaning one way to the left or to the right, but you in essence have taken 5 stitches and reduced it down to 1. That's a decrease 5 stitch. It's not easy to do, but you get a beautiful little design from that. That looks like, let's see, I think it's this one. This is what this ends up looking like here, this center double decrease stitch. I'm sorry, it's a decrease 5 stitch, but it is like a center double decrease, because it doesn't lean to one way or the other. The next stitch is called a SK2P, which basically is a slip stitch. Knit 2 together and pass the slip stitch over. Slip one SK2P. You're going to slip 1 stitch knitwise, knit 2 stitches together, and then you're going to pass the slip stitch over the knit stitch and off the needle. And that's a slip knit 2 P. That's what that looks like. I didn't show these last week, but I thought I'd show them because I'm to the point in the pattern where I have to do this. So I will show it really quickly. I have to slip a stitch with a working yarn in front. All this is where you bring your yarn to the front. You insert your stitch into your needle purlwise, slip the stitch, take your working yarn to the back, and do the next stitch. And this is what I was talking about. It just leaves a little bump right there in front of your stitch when you bring the working yarn to the front. Now, if it said slip the stitch with a working yarn to the back, you would have just done the same thing, slip it purlwise with a working yarn and back, and then move on to the next stitch. The next stitch that's new is there's a symbol on your chart, which is a number 3, and basically you're just going to purl 3 times. So she's basically, instead of writing it out, it's because she didn't have room in the chart for that. Same thing for the number 5. It's basically knit 5 stitches in a row, not knit 5 together, just knit 5 stitches in a row. The next stitch is called the KFB, which means knit front and back. I actually have another video for that. I'll link it here, but I'm also going to show it as I talk through it. Stitch that Romi Hill has added for this is called a knit front and back. It wasn't on the legend, but she told us to add it, and in the groups they added it. It is on chart. If you are knitting this one stitch is on chart D, row 15, the next to the last stitch, and it looks like a 2 with a downward arrow like this. Here, I'll show you. I'll write it on the paper without showing the chart. It looks like this: 2 with a downward arrow, and that's a KFB stitch, knit front and back. And how you do this stitch, I do have a video showing this, but I'll show you here as well. Since we are talking about stitches, you put your needle in and you knit it, but you do not pull it off the left hand needle. You insert your knitting needle through the back, to the back of that stitch, and you knit through the back of that stitch. So then you pull it off and you have knit through the front and back, and you will have a little bit of a bar on that second stitch because you've knit through the back of that loop. And that's what it looks like. You've made 1 stitch into 2 stitch, and that is a knit front and back. The next stitch is called the increase 3 stitch. It's also known, I've called it the KYOK stitch. I've called it a star stitch. You basically take 1 stitch and make 3 out of it, but you take your needle, insert it, knit the stitch, then do not pull it off the left hand needle, do a yarn over, then stick your needle back into that same stitch and do another knit stitch, and then you take it off the left hand needle and it becomes 3 stitches out of that 1. The increase 5 stitch is the same variation of that increase 3 stitch. You're going to take 1 stitch, make it into 5. You're going to insert your needle into that stitch where you're going to do this, knit, then yarn over, go back into that stitch and knit it again, yarn over, and go back into that same stitch and knit. So you have a knit, yarn over knit, yarn over knit. So 1 stitch becomes 5, and it makes a really pretty fan-shaped ornament. An increase 5 is the same similar principle. You're going to work with 1 stitch. Sorry, the sun is coming out. Here we go. We do a knit, yarn over, all in the same stitch. So do not pull that stitch off the left hand needle till we're done. Yarn over knit, yarn over knit. And that's an increase 5. This is where you started. You did a knit, yarn over knit, yarn over knit. That gives you 5 stitches from 1, and that's an increase 5 stitch. Another type of stitch that she's showing here that we haven't done is a purl through the back loop stitch. Basically, on your stitches, this is the front loop and this is the back loop. So if we're going to purl through the back loop, the only tricky part of this is you have to turn your knitting a little bit to get your needle through it, but you insert your left hand needle through the back loop of the stitch, and then you just wrap your yarn around it like this and pull it through. And that is a purl through the back loop stitch. And it's oriented a lot differently because like when you purl regularly, I'll show you that right beside it. You can see how that just lays with a bump. This still has a bump, but it's oriented a little bit differently. It's laying a little bit more back, twisted a little bit differently. That's really what it is. That's a purl through the back loop and then a regular purl stitch. Let's see what else is there. And then the last stitch that's brand new to this section is called a bobble stitch. And for this one, I wasn't sure. There's a lot of different ways to do bobble stitches. It also can be kind of confused with a noop, where isn't a noop stitch. I do have videos for 3 ways to do noops. I'll link that above. But for a bobble stitch, for this one, she basically wants you to finish all of it before you move on to the next stitch. So there's a little bit of turning back and forth when you're working this one stitch to finish it before you moved on to the very next stitch on your knitting needles. And basically, the way you do the bobble stitch is you insert your needle and insert your right hand needle. You do an increase 5 stitch, which is a knit, yarn over knit, yarn over knit. Okay, see, that's 1 to 5. Then you turn your work to the wrong side and you purl each one of those 5 stitches you just made. So you purl back through them and you turn it again to the right side, and then you're going to do a decrease 5 stitch, which basically I just described a while ago is where you slip 3 stitches knitwise, then do an SSK with the 4th and 5th stitch, and then you take those 3 stitches that you slipped and pass them over that stitch that results from the SSK, and you've taken 5 stitches down to 1. When you get to the part where you do a bobble, you have to do an increase stitch first. You do a knit, yarn over, knit. This is all in the same stitch. Yarn over, knit. And the looser that you can make this, like I was pulling it a little bit tight, but the looser that you can make this, the easier it will be to stick your knitting into it to put them all together. So once you do the 5 stitches increase, knit, yarn over knit, you turn your work to the wrong side row immediately and purl back through these stitches. Again, I'm trying to purl a little loosely because that makes it easier to pull these stitches together and make a bobble. Because you're going to have to put your needle through all 5 of these stitches. Ooh, I really made that loose. Okay. Alright, so you purl all 5 stitches, turn it again. Now you're going to do a decrease 5 stitch, which I've already showed you, but I'll show you here again. You take these first 3 stitches, slip them together knitwise like that, and then these 2 stitches you're going to slip, knit them together through the back loop. Oops, hold on 1 second, start over. I have my working yarn to the front. Take your working yarn to the back. Alright, let's start over. Slip those 3 stitches together, then do a slip, knit those together through the back loop. Okay, now that you've done that, you take these 3 stitches that you slipped together knitwise, pass them over the stitch that you just had from the slip, knit. And there you go. There's your bobble. And that's all there is to the bobble stitch. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put down below. You do all of those before you go on to the next stitch in your row. And what that makes is a cute little bobble that's really poppy, perky. This is the bobble that results from that, doing that. Let's see, here's another one. And these are, since you do them all at once, these are going to really pop. Okay, that's a bobble. Right there, if you can see it. Let's go around. They should be all right in line. There's another bobble. There's another bobble. If you guys can see, it's pretty perky, pretty mahoosive. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And oh, nope, those are all the stitches. I wanted to make sure. I thought I saw one other, but no, those are all the new stitches for this Clue 2. Thank you for letting me explain those to you. And if you're watching this, I am so excited that you are interested in how these stitches are done and learning more about how to do knitting. And thank you guys so much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here and would like to subscribe to my channel for knitting and crochet content, whips, learning how to knit, learning new knitting tutorial stitches, and going to be starting to do some lives soon, next week in April. Please subscribe. I would love to have you here in my family, and we are a very interactive discussion type of a family. We talk to each other, talk about what we're making, and I read all your comments and enjoy every one of them, and like learning about what you guys are working on. It's not just about what I'm doing. So love to have you here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this, and we will catch you all next time. Thank you again.